Hey friends, welcome to another episode of Growing Up Punk, a podcast where we talk about punk rock and all things punk music, community, culture, how has punk music shaped who we are as people, and especially as we are growing up, and me and David, who are fathers now, how does that relate to life as we know it now? And welcome to the first episode of a new segment of the podcast. So typically in the last, couple of years since this podcast has started, we've mostly been talking about music, reviews, things we're listening to. But we want to start talking to other people who grew up similar to us, grew up being influenced by punk music, kind of how has that shaped them as a person. What has kept them still into this kind of music as they've gotten older. And so we're looking forward to having you guys join us for this part of the podcast. If you want to check us out online, you can follow David on Instagram because he is not a man yet. His tag is David Growing Up. Maybe one day it will be David has become a man. Just kidding. He is busy working on his basement this week, so I'm flying solo. So hopefully I don't screw it up. You can follow me on Instagram at Aaron Grew Up Punk, and on Facebook, Growing Up Punk, and you can find us anywhere else you search. We are everywhere. We are like the internet. We're just kind of there, but sometimes you got to search for a strong signal. Anyways, today's episode features my good friend Marty Falk. I've known Marty for a number of years now and actually met him and approached him because I liked the shirt he was wearing. And I think it was a band shirt of some kind that was designed by an artist named Dave Quiggle. He does a lot of punk and hardcore band merch and shirts. And so as soon as I saw it, I was drawn to him, and we've been long-lost brothers ever since. And so I'm excited to get to talk with him tonight. And so, looking forward to getting to know Marty and hearing how punk music has changed and shaped his life. So I kind of on the intro gave a little brief description of how I met you. I was saying that I just saw your shirt with the Dave Quiggle design and just instantly drew me to you, and we've been friends ever since. Yeah,
so, no, that was, I wasn't expecting anybody to just be like, hey, nice Quiggle shirt.
Yeah, I guess
at a YFC event, so.
That's something you hear every day?
No, not necessarily. Definitely not where I'm from. Nobody knows who that is, so.
Yeah, awesome. Well, maybe just give us like a quick bio of kind of who you are, what you do, your top 5 accomplishments in the last 6 days.
Yeah, well, I'm Marty Falk, as you said. I live in Altona, Manitoba. I am the program director of the station Youth for Christ here in Altona. I've been doing that for coming up on 4.5 years. It's a great job. And again, like you said, that's how me and you met through YFC retreat. And it's just, I'm an old man who hangs out with kids all day. I mean, that sounds weird, but
you're not that old.
No, I'm not that old. But we went paintballing today, and I'm definitely feeling my age. So that's always a good thing. The kids keep me young, that's for sure.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so let's just get right into it. So maybe just start by, if you can just kind of give us a brief overview of how you got into music. Like, what would be some of your earliest memories of listening to music, and maybe which artists or albums were those that originally piqued your interest in music?
Yeah, well, I was thinking about that a little bit, and it's like I kind of had like a weird transition. I went from like being younger, and I remember listening to like this really loving this a cappella group called Rhythm and News.
Oh man,
and,
yes.
Yeah, like I played the crap out of that tape, and it was just like I loved that. But then I met a guy through one of my youth groups, and he was actually like really into like bands like Tourniquet, like that 80s Christian metal.
Just a little shift.
Yeah, but that I don't know, that aggressive music, that just whatever, the metal, it resonated with me. And so then he just led me down a road of all that Tourniquet and White Cross and Petra and Guardian and whoever. And so I got into that stuff, but then, I don't know, it would have been like, I think my first introduction into like punk, like we had a local electronics store here in town, and they had like a small Christian music section. And I remember walking past the rack one day and seeing the MXDX's Pokin' At Ya.
Classic.
You know, the blue album with the Pokin' At Ya punk on it. And I had never heard of them. I didn't know what it was, but I was like, that just looks cool. So I bought it. And then that's kind of like when my love for punk just kind of came about. And then from there, it just grew into punk, hardcore, you know, all that good stuff. And so it was a weird transition. Like I said, I went from like a cappella to just like heavy stuff.
Yeah, it's funny how similar our musical journey is. And it just makes me so happy knowing that I'm not the only weird, like, conservative Christian kid that got introduced to. It's just so funny how many people I've spoken to have a similar story. So what age would have that been that you got into like the Tourniquet and that metal stuff, and then when you kind of discovered more punk stuff?
So I think when I met my friend Jim, I would have been in grade 10 because he was 2 years older than me. Yeah, so that was grade 10, 9 or 10. And so like mostly through high school, I was like the weird kid listening to punk and hardcore when everybody was still listening to like whatever, Chumbawamba and Sublime or whatever was popular back then. But yeah, so like it was, so I would have been, I guess, 14, 15.
Oh, okay. So that was, like a bit later then. So were you not listening to music like as a preteen and early teen?
I was, but it was all that like weird a cappella stuff.
Oh, okay.
Music. Yeah, like music just wasn't like, at that point, music wasn't like a huge thing. Like I was in like grade 7 and 8 and stuff like that. And so then, but when I hit high school is when like I started meeting guys who were more into that stuff, and then it kind of just like exploded from there.
Oh, okay. So I thought you meant you were like 15 and 16 when you were rocking out to Petra and Tourniquet and...
Well, there would have been. Yeah, I would have been that age about that when I got introduced to that stuff.
Oh, okay. Also,
like I said, because he was 2 years older than me. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, he would have been grade 11, something like that, and I would have been grade 9. So.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess it's a bit older than me. I was maybe more like 11, 12, kind of, because I had an older brother at home who was into that stuff. So kind of how I got introduced to that or whatever. But so was that like in your household growing up, was that like a problem for you to listen to that kind of music, or did your parents not care, or what?
No, my parents hated it.
So
I remember, like my friend Jim had the Tourniquet Stop the Bleeding on tape, and I wanted to record it. I wanted to tape it and make a copy for myself. And I asked my mom if she could buy me a blank tape. And my mom was like, well, what do you want it for? And so I played her a bit of it, and she's like, absolutely not.
Oh, I love that.
So that I, scratched enough money together to get a blank tape, and then I did it myself.
Man.
Right away. Went from good little Christian boy to just rebel.
And did she know you did that, or was there any consequence?
She found out eventually. Yeah, she found out eventually, but then by that point it was too late. I already had copies of all sorts of other stuff, and
so they just kind of let it go and hope for the best. Yeah,
they're like, hopefully he doesn't turn into a delinquent listening to this kind of music.
Yeah, and I still make fun of my parents now, just saying like, remember when you stopped me from listening to all that stuff, and now look what I like. Should have just let me get it out when I could have. But my parents have said lots, and I get it. Like they had no reference for any of that stuff, right? Like,
well, exactly.
It's not like they could have even. I mean, we didn't even have the internet as a teenager, but it's not like they could have even gone anywhere to find out about that, and so just funny.
Well, exactly. I tried to show my mom, because at that time, like in the liner notes of the Tourniquet tape, like they still had like, here's a line from a song, and then there's a Bible verse that goes with that line, and then the next one, here's a Bible verse. So I was trying to show them that. Even that, she's like, no, this can't be like that.
Yeah.
What reason do they have to scream like that?
Yeah, man. So true. So do you remember like how that music made you feel when you first when you first kind of gravitated towards it, or when you first heard it, or that switch, from metal to punk? Like, what was it about when you found MXPX is Poking At Ya? Like, what did that make you feel, and how was that different from, some of that early music that you listened to?
Well, it was just like it not that the metal stuff wasn't fast, but this was like a different kind of fast. It was a fun fast. Because everything they were doing, they're singing. You could sing along to the songs. Like, I had a hard time singing along to Tourniquet. But with like MXPX, you could really get into it.
Yeah.
You could sing along. You could, I guess, understand what they were saying a little bit better, and they related to what I was going through, what I was feeling at the time, and stuff like that. So that just really, it really just took hold in me and was like, this is awesome. I want more of this. Yeah. And then that kind of MXPX led me to Dogwood, led me to, and then even from there, then I started getting into like more like some of the local music. So I started listening to like Propagandy, because they're from Winnipeg, and to start hearing about them and stuff like that. So just that kind of just like opened up my musical world really to just all sorts of different stuff. So then I was like going to that music store and just buying random CDs off the shelf all the time.
Yeah. Do you remember what some of those would have been? Like, were there some that were kind of
there would have been
stuck
like,
with you, or?
Yeah, like 6 Feet Deep,
Nice.
The Blamed, like a lot of the early Tooth and Nail bands.
Yeah.
Like obviously MXPX being one of them, but then like Unashamed, Focused, just like all those bands like that. I remember a friend of mine who grew up in Southern California. He came out here, and when I met him, he was like, we were at some fire, and we had a ghetto there, and I had all my CDs, and he's looking through all my CDs, and he's like, dude, you have more Tooth and Nail CDs than I do, and I know these people.
That's funny.
So he was like super impressed with that. So but that whole the whole Tooth and Nail lineup from like Wish for Eden being the first album to like everything after that, I just gravitated towards. So I just soaked it up. Yeah.
So you mentioned like getting into live music. Maybe talk a bit about kind of that experience from, growing up and hearing this music on a CD. And, I remember thinking this is so foreign and out there. And then when you first get to see, a live show and it's right in front of you and you're getting to hear some of those favorite songs or bands or whatever, tell me a bit about that. What were maybe some of those first bands, and how did that impact you?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. As far as like live music, being from a small town an hour south of Winnipeg, and when I was younger, not having ways to get to the city, it was a while before I went to like my first like punk show. I remember seeing like Guardian came to Winkler, and I thought that was like awesome. And I had tickets to go see Bride, but then my parents wouldn't let me go. So it was a little bit before like I got older and was like able to start driving to the city myself and stuff like that. But some of like those earlier shows, like one of the first shows I think I went to was an MXPX show at the Royal Albert in Winnipeg.
Nice. Yeah, I think it was like that one.
I guess just the dingiest dive bar in Winnipeg, but that's where so many shows were. And going to that show and just being like, super excited to like see this band we've been listening to for years on CD live was just exciting. Like it was awesome. So it just made me want to see more and more. And then for myself, like in my early 20s, I started playing in bands and stuff like that. So a lot of the live music that I went to was a lot of local stuff. And then I, started to hang out with the guys from like the Undecided, because they were being awesome. From Steinbach, being on Tooth and Nail. So a lot of the times those guys would end up opening for, like I remember they opened, I think, for MXPX at a venue in Winnipeg. They opened for, was it Strung Out?
Oh, yeah. I remember
they opened up for Strung Out. And just like stuff like that. And then like meeting those guys and then just, going to shows with them. And so like live music was just fun, like being in the crowd and pumping your fist to the music and getting up front and singing. And, at some of those early hardcore shows, like you're like right in there and the guy's like screaming in your face. And it was an awesome experience and you just wanted more of it. So started going to shows like every other weekend.
Well, I think that's what's so special about, this kind of music, versus, teens that grow up listening to top 40 or whatever, they go to a concert, it's in an arena. There's not really anything personal about it. Whereas, like we could, the first concerts we go to, we're right up front, like typically the band is hanging out at the merch table or out back or whatever. And
exactly.
I remember that being like what really blew my mind. Like, this is my favorite band. I mean, I didn't know a lot of bands then, but it's like, this is my favorite band I'm getting to see. I get to meet them. It was just like normal, even though it was so surreal.
Yeah.
So
Well, and that's the thing. Yeah. And so like this friend of mine from Southern California that I met, he ended up moving up here. Lived in Altona for a while. I don't know. His name was Honorius Glomatico. Everybody knew him as H.
Wow.
And then he lived in Altona for a while, but then ended up having to get a job and couldn't get a job in Canada, so he got a job in Grafton, North Dakota, which was about I don't know, half an hour away. And he ended up making this venue that they called H's Place.
Right. Yeah.
And because he knew so many of these tooth and nail bands, like a lot of tooth and nail bands, they're coming anywhere near North Dakota, he would have them come play his place. So, we got to meet, like, you go see, like, Dogwood. They played there a bunch of times. Got to, like, hang out with those guys afterwards. Because a lot of times they would spend the night there, go on to the next place. Had supper with the Appleseed Cast. Zayo played there, Living Sacrifice, Dave Staker, like, tons of these bigger tooth and nail bands, like, because they said you knew these guys, so they came and played. And because that was such that intimate venue, you got to, afterwards, you got to legit sit down and hang out with these guys. And then you realize that, they're normal people.
Right.
But you still kind of have them on this pedestal.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But then you get to meet them a little bit and you realize that, they're just normal dudes. So, having that, like you say, having that intimate experience with that punk and that hardcore, as opposed to like a few months ago I went and saw Metallica and I was in the third row from the back wall, it's not the same.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so do you still enjoy going to those bigger like arena tours for bands like that, just to kind of be able to still take it in? And
like in a case like that with Metallica, I was like, okay, I've always wanted to see them, and I figured, if I don't go see them now, how much longer are they going to be able to actually perform the way they do? They are getting old, so plus one of the kids I work with wanted to go, so we went, and it was a good experience. But I don't typically like those big arena shows.
Yeah, I've actually
I much prefer this.
I've never actually been to like a big arena show.
Okay.
So I'm sure there is something about just being with that many thousands of fans of a band, and it's awesome going to a smaller punk show or even a bigger one. But there is something about 20, 30,000 people screaming along to a band. So
yeah, it's an experience, but like you say, like growing up with in the punk scene and stuff like that, and having those smaller intimate shows, that's kind of what you kind of want more.
Yeah, for sure. So at the start you said you're not getting any younger. So what would you say has kind of kept you kind of coming back to this kind of music? A lot of people when they get older, I've got lots of friends who they just kind of age out of this kind of music or start listening to more mellow stuff. So what for you? What is it that kind of keeps you hooked on this?
Yeah, I think it's just that like we were talking about before, like the way it made you feel. This music makes me feel the way that it did back then. Whereas like a lot of newer music today, like the radio stuff, the top 40, it doesn't make me feel anything.
Yeah, right.
Like when last week Killswitch Engage, they released a new album. And on that album they have a song that has their current singer Jesse Leach, but also has Howard Jones, their old singer.
So good.
And that gave me tingles listening to it. Watching the music video they released, it was like there was something stirred inside me. There was an emotional response to seeing that. And I think that has to do with the style of music, not just the fact that, part of it is because they have these two iconic singers for this band who have now teamed up for a song. And honestly, if you're a fan of the band, I think that's something you've always wanted.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
But like you said, like it gave me tingles. It made me feel something. And that's what a lot of like punk and hardcore does. For me at least.
Yeah.
Like the first time I think I heard like say Zayo's Blood and Fire Bring Rest, like that. The songs for that album, and then when they're, I don't know, the end of it when they're singing like Land Blood and Wind, like that part was just, I don't know, blew me away. I loved it. And too, like, you know, certain Dogwood songs I remember, like listening to that. Oh, what was the first album called?
More Than Conquerors one, or before that?
No, not More Than Conquerors. The one before that.
Through Thick and Thin.
Through Thick and Thin. So the title song for that one, Through Thick and Thin, like I remember me and my friends just like belting that song all the time, like driving around in the car just listening to that song, just belting because it stirred up that response, that emotional response.
Yeah.
And but there too, I think it was on. Maybe it was on Through Thick and Thin. There's the song that the drummer wrote for his stepson. I think it was there too. There was a song. It just did something on the inside, and so to me, that's what has made me kept me sticking to this kind of music, is because this is the music that gives me that fun.
Yeah.
Other music, some country singer talking about his, you know, wife or kid or whatever, that doesn't do it for me.
Yeah.
So.
Well, there's just something about, you know, the aggression and the passion that comes with it. Like, yeah, there's lots of other styles of music that have songs that have meaning or whatever, but there's just something about, like, when it's aggressive, just makes it seem so much more real and just inviting, you know. Maybe that's just for us. I know, I'm sure there's lots of people that wouldn't agree with that, but.
Yeah, and I've had that conversation with a lot of people, because like, a lot of people don't like that, like the style of music like I do, and they ask me, well, how do you enjoy it? Like, you're just screaming. I was like, yeah, but that's passion. That's emotion. Like, you imagine, like, when you're mad or when you're happy, like, you just want to yell, right?
Yeah.
You're so happy you could scream, right? Like, that's what these guys are doing, just with aggressive music.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's like, well, what do they have to scream? They're screaming. It sounds so negative. I said, yeah, but read the lyrics. Like, actually get into it. They're not. Yeah, some songs are sad. Some songs are about anger. But some songs are also about the awesome things.
Yeah.
You just want to scream about it. So to me, it's just, like that passion and that emotion that stirs up in those music is what just keeps me going with it.
Yeah, and I feel like it's one of those things that you kind of have to experience at a certain time of your life where it really stuck out. Like, yeah, if, you know, some 40-year-old guy now that has never listened to punk music starts listening, it's probably not going to stand out as anything, because, you know, unless he's like in a midlife crisis and that's what he's looking for. But, you know, there's something about being young and figuring out kind of who you are and just new things in the world and just these kind of urges in you, and then you hear music that kind of fits what you're feeling, and it just matches up so perfectly.
Well, yeah, like I even have like a friend who's, you know, a number of years older than me, and I remember talking to him one time, and he was like telling me, like, oh, you're so lucky that you were young when you got into this music, because he got into it when he was older, and he's like, I feel like I missed so much,
you
know, because I didn't have that in my youth. And he's like, you're so lucky. I'm like, I never really thought of it that way, you know, because had I grown up 10 years sooner, I mean, whatever. Yeah, I could have gotten into things like the Ramones or the Sex Pistols, stuff like that. That was, you know, older.
Right. Yeah.
But even like listening to that today, like even though I enjoy some of that music, I don't think that would have stirred with me the way the stuff that I actually grew up with does.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, there's lots of good things I'm always thankful for in that era, you know, just of discovering music, and it actually took work, right? You couldn't just go online, or, you know, wasn't like, CDs were so expensive too. You couldn't just go and buy 10 CDs. You just get a couple, and you would just kind of pour over those, and they would really stuck. And I think that's another thing too with finding music at that stage where, you know, you just wanted to spend so much time with it. Whereas now, you know, I mean, you can kind of go all day talking about the differences of music and accessibility and all that kind of stuff. But just knowing this was going to be my new album for the next 3 months, it just became such a part of who you were. Like, it was so much more personal than just kind of adding another, you know, file on your phone or whatever.
Well, yeah, and I think that's why, I keep going back to the old albums that I listened to back then, because you poured over those albums so much.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, those albums became a part of your whatever, like, you're just part of you. Whereas nowadays, yeah, like, there's so much new stuff that comes out and it's so accessible. Like, as much as I would love to pour over some of these albums, I just don't. I mean, part of it has to do with, I'm getting older, I have a family. I don't necessarily have the time to do it.
Yeah.
But even still, I mean, if I really wanted to, I would make that time. But even when I do have that time, I find myself listening to the old albums that I liked.
Yeah, same. Yeah, there's something about just going back to those. They're just always so good, and they just kind of take you back to that feeling. So I think that's a big part, back when we were talking about what kind of keeps you coming back is just knowing that, I can put this record on and I know it's going to make me feel a certain way because it has so many times already.
Well, yeah. And like, people have those songs that, when they're feeling upset or feeling mad that you go to cheer yourself up. And yeah, it's often, like, for me, it's often that aggressive music that I enjoyed listening to when I was younger that actually cheers me up.
Yeah.
And people are like, well, how, like, again, it's so angry. I'm like, no, it's not always angry. And it makes me feel happy.
Yeah. And it's hard to help people understand that, but
yeah, no, it's some people they just don't get how that kind of aggressive music, punk and hardcore and stuff, can actually make a person happy.
Yeah. There's a lot to it, and I don't know. I kind of feel like as the older I get, I don't even try and like help people understand. It's like whatever. Just let me enjoy it. You go listen to whatever.
Exactly. You go listen to what you want to listen to. I'll listen to what I want to listen to, and we'll just be happy.
Yeah. So let's wrap up with talking about some top experiences and albums. So what would you say are your top 3 live show experiences from the last 15, 20 years, I guess?
Yeah, well, I mean,
just maybe hard to wrap that up, but
it is, because I mean, I've gone to a lot of live shows. I've been to a couple of different festivals, but I would guess my top 3 probably would have been, so Dogwood played here in Winnipeg, not here in Winnipeg because I don't live there, but in Winnipeg. I don't know what the year would have been, but they played at a church in Winnipeg, and the show was just like wild and fun. Like, it was just unreal. Had such a good time. And again, because, they knew the guys in the Undecided and stuff, we all hung out afterwards, and so that was just real special experience. Plus, Dog was just an awesome live band.
Yeah. Do you know what album that they would have been touring then?
I think that would have been like the Building a Better Me.
Man, such a good album.
Yeah, like, it was a great album. I think that was right around the same time. Yeah, the Undecided was on Tooth and Nail with them. I actually have that poster here on my wall. My little man cave.
Nice.
But yeah, so that was a good one. NIV, like No Innocent Victim.
Yeah, awesome.
At like Cornerstone, it's either 98 or 2000. I went 3 years, so 96, 98, and 2000, but I don't exactly remember. But I just remember like the lead singer telling this like emotional story about losing his son like a year before. And NIV is like this like tough guy hardcore, right? And you have all these big tattooed guys up there, and they're all crying, and it's just like it's a very emotional thing.
Yeah.
And then he's like, okay, so enough of this stuff. He was talking about all the pluses and stuff like that, or whatever the experiences that he had. And then he's like, whatever the next song's playing, and I swear it was the biggest circle pit I'd ever seen in my life.
Wow.
It's like one of those big tents at Cornerstone was just like circling, and it was intense. And there was like this island of people in the middle that looked so scared. Because like I don't know, it was probably 2,000 people, and then all of a sudden there was like this group, and I don't know if it was like a planned thing or what, but like a group of like 20 or 30 guys just decided all of a sudden to turn around and go the other way, and then just created this big pile up, and it was just like, it was so awesome. And then the rest of the show was just like amazing, and so like that's that one that's always stuck with me, because it was just, yeah, like I said, like there was that emotion there, and then that massive mosh pit. It was just,
yeah, it's pretty hard to forget those moments.
Kind of scared for my life, but it was so much fun.
Yeah, awesome. That's a good one.
I think third would be, and this would have been purely from like more just like a technical standpoint and how like tight this band was. But As I Lay Dying played in Winnipeg on the Taste of Chaos tour. Don't know the year, but
I remember that. I was at that one in Saskatoon, like with Thrice and Atreyu. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, exactly.
Like 2005, 6 or something?
It could have been something like that. I think that, because I was living in Winnipeg at the time. I lived there for a little while. But they were so tight, and it was so good. And with however you feel about As I Lay Dying now, you just can't deny that these guys as musicians and as players are just like, they're so good together.
Yeah.
And they put on such a great show. And then also on that same show, and I don't remember even the name of the band because they were like on a little side stage between main bands.
Oh yeah.
But there was like this band that was on the side stage that put on such an amazing show. And then at the end of it, so it's just the guitar players just leaning their guitars up against the amps and feedback, and the drummer's still drumming. He's just going. And then the stagehands guys start taking stuff away. They take the guitars away. He keeps drumming. They start taking pieces of his drums away. He just starts using other stuff. And then at the end, basically down to a kick snare, and he's playing piano with his one hand. And then it came down to like they took everything else away. He turned, finished on piano, and walked off the stage. And I just remember going like, I don't know what I just witnessed, but that was nuts.
Yeah. Oh, was it a band like Pelican or something?
It wasn't Pelican because I know Pelican. I want to say it started with a C, but I never remembered. I've never remembered the name of it.
Was it Circus Survive or?
No, because it was. Yeah, I just like, and the thing is, I almost like don't even want to know because now if I would go back and listen to that, I'd probably be disappointed.
Yeah.
So I like that memory. I want to keep that memory.
Yeah.
Because it was so awesome.
Yeah, I remember that. I'm gonna have to go look that up for my own interest's sake.
Yeah.
So
Don't tell me what.
How about your top 3 all-time favorite bands?
I mean, that's an impossible question, really. Like
nobody will know if you're telling the truth or not, or if you're just.
So, to me, I think I went with
bands that have had the biggest influence on you, or.
Yeah, and so I would I'm gonna go with MXPX because they were like my first introduction to punk.
Yeah.
Like really, it's that actual like real punk music. And yeah, like because it was like plus they were like it was their first album that got me into it, and then I just like followed them throughout. So I would say MXPX. For me, on the more aggressive side of things, Refused.
Nice. That's a good one.
Specifically their album, The Shape of Punk to Come.
Yeah, classic.
Because I remember watching the video for New Noise on like Much Music, like Loud or something. And then, so I saw that music or the video and I was like, that is awesome. I want to know more about these guys. So like I immediately went and bought all the Refused music I could find. But then also like in a magazine or something I read that, they had broken up like 3 months before. And I was super bummed. So I'm like, never going to get to see these guys. But subsequently now they're together again. But that album, that's one of those albums that I can put on anytime, and I'm good to go.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
I don't know. It's just that whole album, like start to finish, I can listen to it. There's nothing bad about that album.
Yeah.
And then I guess the only thing I could think of for a third would be like Zayo, because again there too, like that metalcore style of music. And again, like I started listening to them. Like I remember seeing them, the original lineup of Zayo, at Cornerstone 96 on the skateboard ramp at Cornerstone.
Yeah, crazy.
Like they were nobody then. Like that album had come out on Steadfast, and nobody knew who they were. And I just remember thinking, these guys are great. I like them. And then they got signed to Tooth and Nail, and they're again, like I've followed them throughout their career. And I've enjoyed everything they put out. So that's I would say those 3 are again, and I could put on like any Zayo album. I mean, maybe not the All Else Failed remake, but
right, any of their legit albums.
But any of their legit albums, and it's just good to me. So
yeah. So would those be more or less your 3 favorite albums then as well? Poking at You, Shape of Punk to Come, and a Zayo one, or do you have different favorite albums from those bands?
I mean, to me, I think my favorite MXPX album is probably Teenage Politics.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Just because there's a lot of songs, because there too, again, that was a time when, because then a bunch of my friends now were into MXPX, because, I started listening to it, and then they started listening to it because I had it. And then when that album came out, like, everybody bought it and everybody was into it. So again, it's that nostalgia, that memory of that time. And so that's why I would say Teenage Politics is my favorite for them.
Yeah. Awesome.
But yeah, like Refuse Shape Punk to Come, like, it's just a solid album. I love it. And there's just nothing bad about it. And then, yeah, Zayo, I'd say my favorite Zayo album is probably When Blood and Fire Bring Rest.
Yeah, I remember that one too, there was a song on a sampler, and like I was still mostly just into punk at that time, and to me that was like the most extreme form of music.
Yeah, like it, and whatever, like that album also like influenced a ton of other bands, because that was with the new lineup, with like Dan Wynett on vocals, Russ on guitar, Scott on guitar. Only Jesse, like the drummer, was the original member.
Right.
And so it was different than the other, like the Splinter Shards, The Birth of Separation, their first Tooth and Nail album. But this was something different again, And so, yeah, like it was just actually that's good. It was not Scott. It was Russ. Brett Dieter was in the band on that album.
Oh, yeah, right. Went on to the Juliana Theory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is another band. Juliana Theory, also a solid band. I really like them.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's a whole other conversation. Yeah, they had some really good albums, and then they were one of those bands that, and then I saw live, and it just kind of turned me off from them, and I don't think I listened to them much after that. But
yeah, I only saw them once. They came through Winnipeg, and I forget who they came there with. I remember. Yeah, that was Hopeful. That's right. Yeah. And I remember after seeing Hopeful, I was like, oh, okay. Who cares about the Juliana Theory?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was just kind of an odd pairing of bands. But anyways.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks so much for sharing that. I always love just getting to hear, how this kind of music, influences and shapes people, and especially those of us that are still into it, and hopefully will always be. Maybe we'll have the same conversation in another 15 years and see where we're at.
Yeah. See, we're still talking about those same old albums.
Yeah, well, probably. If people want to find you on the intranet, how would they go about doing so? Or if you want to give out your personal address.
I don't care. Well, you want to come to Altona? Yeah, 244 Main Street. Come on, find me.
He's got a sweet vinyl collection to look through.
I do. And pretty much this entire conversation, I've been staring at it. So, but yeah, no, Instagram, I'm Marty Falk on Instagram. Facebook, I'm Marty Falk. And like my Instagram thing says, if you like pictures of my dog, my son, and the dumb crap I buy, give me a follow.
Sweet. And you still got your MySpace profile somewhere?
Oh, you know it.
You might have to search a little harder for that.
You can find, if you search Marty Falk, you will find a picture from my MySpace profile.
Hey, good enough. Print it out.
I look very emo in it, though.
Wow, that's the only way to be on MySpace.
I think so.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time tonight. Greatly appreciate that.
Not a problem.
Check back with us. We'll be continuing to post episodes with future guests and hearing more stories and talking about more albums and music. And until next time, keep fit and have as much fun as you are able.